Takes a couple seconds. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order tonight. Can we get the roll, please?
Yes. Chair Spencer.
Present.
Vice Chair Brady.
Present.
Board Member Jenna.
Here.
Board Member Kottmeyer. Board Member Provo.
Here.
Board Member Rychecki.
All right, looks like we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda, do we have any questions about the meeting minutes for the last meeting? Do we have a motion to approve that?
I motion.
I second.
Vote. Can you read the motion?
Yes.
Please. Sorry.
I move to approve based on the recording secretary's certification of the September 17th video as the minutes for the September 17th, 2005 regular meeting of the Board of Adjustments.
Get a vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Motion carries.
All right, I guess our first item on the agenda then is the public hearing for variance 15-004. Variance to the amount of open space required to be distributed along adjacent public rights-of-way for 5898 South Broadway Boulevard. Could we call the staff, please?
For the record, my name is Pam Hall, City Planner for City of Littleton and Staff Liaison for the Board of Adjustment. I've just presented the board with the list of exhibits for VAR 15-0004, which is a variance for the amount of open space required distributed along adjacent public right-of-way. 7-Eleven has been authorized to go through with the site development plan process by the current owner of the property at 5898 South Broadway Boulevard. The applicant is requesting a variance to the amount of open space required to be distributed along adjacent public right-of-ways. This property is located at the the northeast corner of South Broadway and East Orchard Road. It was annexed into the city in 1964, and in 1986, the existing fuel station and convenience store was built. In 1992, the zoning code was amended to require unobstructed open space along the rights-of-way. So 7-Eleven plans to demolish the existing structures on the site and construct a new fuel station and convenience store. Per the zoning code, new development must meet current zoning requirements. Although the applicant is proposing to increase the amount of unobstructed open space along South Broadway and East Orchard Road, the square footage falls short of the requirement. 7-Eleven proposes a 42% reduction, which is 1,379 square feet of the code requirement. So Section 1011(1)B gives the board authority to grant variances where, due to exceptional and extraordinary circumstances, the literal enforcement of the provisions of this title result in unnecessary hardship. So there's 5 criteria that need to be met. First of all, that the primary use for this zone district which of the affected property does not change, and the requested variance would not allow any other use than the uses permitted in the B2 zone district. Second, the 32,000 square foot property has an odd shape, and that there's a relatively large and isolated piece of property on the northeast corner that's vacant. It's also not adjacent to the roadway. This piece of property allows for more than the minimum amount of open space that's required in the B2 zone district, but isn't any help in putting that required unobstructed open space along the adjacent right-of-way. Attempts were made by the applicant to work with the adjacent veterinary clinic and redevelop the entire corner, but negotiations weren't successful. A variance to the amount of open space required to be distributed along the right-of-way is necessary to allow for safe and efficient routing of customers and the refueling operations. The proposed open space would be similar in scale to developments along South Broadway and a substantial improvement to those on East Orchard Road. If this property did not include the vacant land, and if it had detached sidewalks with the tree lawns along Broadway or Orchard, this open space distribution requirement could be met. Third, fueling equipment installation along with safe and efficient customer vehicle traffic flow presents an increase in the proposed unobstructed open space along South Broadway or East Orchard Road. 7-Eleven will be removing one driveway along South Broadway and increasing the unobstructed open space from the current conditions, but not enough to meet the requirements of the code, which requires 50% of the required 20% to be along there. The applicant can provide 29% of the parcel, 1,902 square feet for open space along this right-of-way. Number 4, the proposed reduction of unobstructed open space disbursement will not have any negative effects to the public health, safety, or welfare. And number 5, the applicant unsuccessfully tried to redevelop the entire corner and partner with the adjacent landowner to the east. They can provide 58% or 1,902 square feet of what's required by code. Does the board have any questions of staff? No? If not, I would at this time like to introduce Chad Wheeler, who's with the Dimension Group, and he's the representative for the applicant.
Good evening, Board. My name is Chad Wheeler, Regional Director for Dimension Group. Address is 5600 South Quebec Street, Suite 310B, Greenwood Village, 80111. Thank you, Pam, very much for the adequate report. It's fairly simple, fairly straightforward as to the issue we have at hand. I also want to take time to say thank you to Andrea, who is our planner on this project. She's been a big help. There's not a whole lot more I can add, but what I certainly can do is answer any questions that you might have as to how it is we got here. And I'll just leave it at that.
I'll start off. So it appears that the property is somewhat of an L shape
Yes,
around the veterinary hospital.
that's correct.
And you guys tried to make a deal with them to redevelop the entire thing.
Yeah, we worked with Dr. Nelson probably for about 4 months.
Okay.
Conceptual site plans, layouts, back and forth.
Sure.
We might have broken a record in our office for conceptual layouts on one project. Terrific man to work with, but as he explains it, he's getting a little older. He's very interested in retiring sooner than later, and at the end of the day, this was probably just too much for him to really kind of tackle. So negotiations didn't break down because of any problems. It just wasn't going to work for him.
So the hardship is basically your open space out there behind the veterinary hospital.
Well, as open space goes, we're taking what is now almost entirely concrete and putting it back to pervious area, which is an overall plus. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, given the shape of the lot and the need to have a site plan that not only works for 7-Eleven but also works for the customers to get in and out safely. It was just nearly impossible, I think, to get some of that, a little bit more of that open space redistributed over along the two roadways.
So on this site plan right here, the green rendering,
Yes.
I'm assuming that is your unobstructed open space along the right-of-way,
That is correct, yeah.
So what type of material are you guys proposing? Is it going to be, grasses, native grasses, that type of thing?
Do you mind terribly if I,
Oh, no,
takes a minute? I understand it takes a minute for this to.
it's,
There we go.
Yeah, flip it around.
Hey,
Upside down, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
I do get to look at it correctly. All right. All right, this is the landscape plan as presented to staff. We could, if it's possible, we can certainly zoom in because most of this sheet is not important to this discussion. We are proposing in this area around on the north, near the trash enclosure, multiple shrubs and a tree that's over there in that triangle. And then mulch, I believe rock mulch. I don't know if it's a river rock or if it's granite. This thing says on it. I do believe it is decomposed granite. Along the thinner strip along Broadway, multiple shrubs, ornamental grasses, again with decomposed granite for mulch. As we get down towards the corner of the streets, we are attempting to provide some water quality, stormwater quality. So that'll be a grass line swale. So that'll be, I believe, fescue, which we'll irrigate, and that's where stormwater will come through and then go into an inlet. And there's a few shrubs right behind the sidewalk, that new ramp that we're proposing. There's a few shrubs right up against the sidewalk there. And then, of course, you work your way to the south, more shrubs, a nice tree. And then that little stretch over there along our east property line between us and the vet, again, more shrubs and a tree further north. But besides the grass line swale, the ground cover itself will be decomposed granite.
and then it does say that you are increasing the amount of unobstructed open space along the right-of-ways. Do you know what that current square footage, how much we are, even though we're under the minimum, under the minimum per code, do you know what it is currently, the square footage?
I don't. I'm afraid I'm sorry, I don't. I know I think it's slightly less than what we're proposing here. And primarily due to the fact that the site plan today has that third curb cut, which is very south along Broadway there. Just as soon as you turn from Bellevue, there's another curb cut, and we are proposing to remove that. So even though it's thin in there, that's some landscape that currently isn't there today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That large piece that's going to be undeveloped,
Yes.
can you give me a vision of what that's supposed to be and how it's going to be maintained and operated, rather than just kind of an open junk pile?
Sure. It is not 7-Eleven's intent to develop that at all, to add anything additional back there. So what we're proposing is a native seed mix, temporary irrigation to get it established. We're adding a few trees. We're going to keep one large pine tree that's back there now. You can see it on the plan there. Add a few more trees to complement that, and then another deciduous tree. But the intent is to not develop it at all and put it back to pervious area.
Okay, so you're not going to use it as kind of a lay-down yard or anything else like that? For
Absolutely not. No.
storage or anything?
No, the 7-Eleven operation is actually a very clean one. There's nothing back there that they would need to do back there.
Is it going to be open, or will it be fenced off?
We currently don't, there's a fence there's a split rail fence currently between us and the vet. Currently, there's nothing on that property to the east, and there is an existing fence along the south property line of CarMax. We could certainly, connect the two fences along that far east property line. Yeah, that's certainly not a problem. We weren't necessarily intending to, but for no good reason, we could certainly add something over there.
Okay. More questions? All right, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I had one more question for staff. With regards to the landscape that is proposed for that area, is that landscape meeting the code for the open space for the planting requirements, or is it reduced because the open space distribution is reduced? Does that make sense?
The total amount of their open space will be 40% of the entire parcel. B2 requires 20%. So they have twice as much as they need, and the main issue is that vacant lot. So they will end up and have more than what they need for the zoning. It's just the distribution of it along the right-of-way that they can't obtain.
Okay, yeah, I guess my question was more for the landscaping along the right-of-way, if they were meeting the requirements.
They are not. That's what this variance is for.
Guess I'm not being clear, but that's okay.
Okay.
Well, so is the definition of unobstructed open space just pretty much not hard surface, not concrete, that type of?
It's anything that does not contain a structure or you park or drive on. So private sidewalks count towards the unobstructed open space. This large vacant lot would count towards unobstructed open space. And then the landscaping that they have along the right-of-way would also.
So because they're taking down the area that runs along Broadway, but they're making up for it in another area, it's not equally distributed as it should be per code, is what you're saying. But
when this property was built, it was before we had the code that required the distribution among, that take half of the required open space and distribute it along the right-of-way. So the current convenience store does not meet this either. And they're going to be scraping the entire thing, and like Chad said, they're going to be removing one of the 3 driveway entrances, so that'll increase the open space probably somewhere around 75 square feet or so.
can I ask one more question? Are there any current issues with that back area being cement, that they're having a lot of issues of parking or people going back there because it's so private and cornered off?
I'm not aware of any issues. It'll just end up and make it easier for the drainage for the entire region.
Any more questions? Doesn't look like there's anybody here to speak from the public, so I'll close the public hearing, open it up for discussion amongst the board. You guys have anything? Yeah. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Just to clarify, the motion you're making is the suggested motion in the packet.
Where is that? Sorry.
So it's right here.
Okay. I move to approve case number VAR 15-004, a request for a variance to the amount of unobstructed open space required to be distributed along adjacent rights-of-way at 5898 South Broadway Boulevard, be approved, and that the request does meet all the criteria of Section 10-11-1B of the Littleton City Code that are required for the board to grant approval. Approval of this application is based on the following findings of fact. The requested variance would not allow for any other use than the uses permitted in the B2 Community Business Zone District. The proposed reduction of distributed open space will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. 7-Eleven is proposing more than the existing convenience store has and will be similar in scale to adjacent properties. The proposed amount of unobstructed space is the minimum that will afford relief and is the least possible modification of the code. Providing any more open space along the rights-of-way will obstruct turning radiuses of the ingress and egress of the site. The proposed reduction in open space disbursement will not have any negative effects on the public health, safety, or welfare. The proposed project will add open space along the adjacent right-of-way. Number 5, the hardship under which this variance is sought was not created by the owner, occupant, or agent of the owner of the property in question, nor was it suffered as a result of a violation of any provision of this code, as the configuration of the property is an odd shape and the proposed site layout for the fueling station convenience store cannot reasonably be altered.
All right, now do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I'm going to poll the board, please.
Chair Spencer?
In favor?
Vice Chair Brady?
In favor.
Board Member Jenna?
Favor.
Board Member Provo?
In favor?
Vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
Thank you. All right, now moving on to the next item on the agenda for variance VAR 15-0005. This is a variance to the minimum south side setback in the R3 zone district at 5325 South Crocker Street.
I just presented the board with the list of exhibits for variance 15-0015, which is a variance for minimum south side setback in the R3 zone district. The applicants, Keith Price and Julia Anderson, owners of the property located at 5323 South Crocker Street, are requesting a 5-foot 8-inch variance to the required 10-foot minimum south side setback requirement. This property is located in the Keys Addition and Littleton subdivision. The subdivision was annexed in 1953. The present R3 zoning was established as part of creating a home rule city in 1960. This house was built in Denver in 1939 and moved onto the property in 1957. The current property owners purchased the house July of 2001. Since then, their family has grown and they're in need of additional bedrooms and bathrooms. The present setback on the south side is 4 foot 4 inches. The applicants wish to build a second story with the same setback. Now, since our packets went out, I was requested to bring an additional exhibit for the board. And this exhibit will be entered into the record as Exhibit H. What this shows is this plot this was plotted back in 1890. This neighborhood was. So, and then Denver Water didn't even exist back then, but Denver Water since has put in an easement. The subject property is in the yellow, and it shows that there is a 60-foot wide Denver Water Board easement. The plan that I was able to find was the property to the west, which is actually to the bottom of this property, is some condominiums, and this is their plan development plan. So Section 10-11(1)B grants the board authority to grant variances where due to exceptional and extraordinary circumstances, literal enforcement of the provisions of this title would result in unnecessary hardship. There are 5 criteria that need to be met. First of all, the requested variance will not allow any other use than what's permitted uses in R3 Single Family Zone District. Number 2, many of the homes in this neighborhood are built close to the property lines. The applicant's house was actually set and not built on this property at 4 foot 4 inches to stay out of the easement. The applicants are proposing to add a second story to their existing home to allow for additional bedrooms and bathrooms. They've taken care to position the additional windows to minimize the impact for their neighbor. The house is currently located 19 feet 6 inches away from the adjacent neighbor's house, and it will continue to be at that distance. Number 3, there's an existing Denver water easement that traverses the rear of the property and renders their backyard unbuildable. The only way to expand this house is to build a second story. Number 4, the proposed reduction in the south setback will not have any negative effects on public health, safety, or welfare. The applicant's house will still remain at 19 feet 6 inches from the neighbor's house. Number 5, the applicants purchased the house many years after this house was relocated into the city. The Denver Water Board easement existed before any of the homes were built in this neighborhood. So does the board have any questions of staff?
Thanks for finding that easement document, Pam.
You're welcome. And at this time, I'd like to bring up Keith Price,
Okay?
who's the applicant.
Hello,
Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
my name is Keith Bryce. I live at 5325 South Crocker Street.
Thank you.
So, I don't know, I guess I'll just ask if you guys have any questions about it. I don't really know what I would present to you.
Well, I see you do have an architectural rendering of what the elevation would look like.
Right.
And in your application, you said that none of the windows will, affect your neighbors. Do you have you guys got to the level of a floor plan or exactly showing window locations along
Yeah,
that south side in question?
Yeah, I do have floor plans.
I'm an architect, so I love this stuff.
Yeah, so these ones aren't, the ones that are here aren't the finals, that weren't the set permit ones. I ran out of those. So I just need, so these are some of the preliminary ones, but the windows and everything are the same.
Okay.
This one, we'll do, I think it's page 3. Oh, that'd be, this is page 2. She probably wants to see floor plan, this one. So, this shows, so this is one of the windows. The first window that'll be to the east, and this will be the west one, and their house sits right here, basically. So it would look both, when you're looking out at the property, it would look both out to the west and to the east, directly at their house. And they wouldn't have access, and there's no windows here, it's just skylight, skylight, skylight. So that way we still have natural lighting.
And it looks like from the aerial that that's a one-story house on that side, this side in question?
Yeah.
Of the 4 setback.
And then this is what the elevations would look like, except for there's, the new entryway is going to be a little bit taller and it'll be built up as a playroom, but there won't be any windows there. They'll all be street facing.
It's hard to read from here, but it looks like the bottom one is the
Yeah,
the south.
Yeah, this is the south.
Okay.
Yeah, the south side.
So you got the existing windows, and that second floor has no windows except
Right.
for on the
Yeah, and then
corners.
there's a 6-foot privacy fence right there.
Okay. Have you discussed this with your neighbors at all, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
They're all on board, so,
I don't see anybody here, so.
yeah.
So beside the south setback, does all the other, or does the house, is it within all the other setbacks, the front, rear, and?
Yeah, everywhere else is the same. The footprint is gonna stay exactly the same as what the existing structure is. It's just that since we're building up in the easement area, so.
Right, and the height restriction in this zoning code is 30 feet, so it looks like, do you know what height ceiling you're gonna do on the second floor?
It'll be a 14-foot vaulted ceiling on the second floor. So the walls, the exterior walls are gonna be at 8 feet, and then it'll pitch up from there. And then I think we're still, I talked to our architect, and I know Littleton doesn't have a bulk plane, but we're still underneath the bulk plane, so we wouldn't cast a shadow from anywhere. And since it's a south facing, all of our shadows go to the other side of the house.
I couldn't tell from the satellite photos or whatever this, this is now, you're going from a single story to a two-story building.
Yeah.
How many other of your neighbors are in a single story or two-story?
On our block, we would be the only one that would be a two-story. The block directly to the east of us has 2 stories, I think three 2 stories, but we would be the first on our block to have that.
So it won't be the standout house or
No.
development. So.
Yeah, I mean, it will be, I mean, it'll stand out a little just because it'll be the only 2-story on our block. But for the rest of the neighborhood, it wouldn't impact it that way.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Awesome, thanks.
Any questions for staff at all? Or? Okay. I'll close this portion of the public hearing then. Open it for discussion to the board. No questions? Okay. I move to approve case VAR 15-0005. Request for variance to the south side setback requirement at 5325 South Crocker Street be approved, and that the request does meet all the criteria of section 10-11-1B of the Littleton City Code that are required to exist for the board to grant approval. Approval of this application is based on the following findings of fact. 1, the requested variance would not allow any use other than the uses permitted in the R3 single-family zone district. 2, the proposed setback reduction will not alter the character of their neighborhood, as the south side setback is already established at 4 foot 4 inches. The proposed variance is the minimum that will afford relief and is the least possible modification of the code. Most of the property is in the Denver water easement. The proposed variance will not, number 4, the proposed variance will not have any negative effects on public health, safety, or welfare, as its location will not create any visibility or safety concerns. Number 5, the hardship under which this variance is sought was not created by the owner, occupant, or agent of the owner of the property in question, nor was it suffered as a result of any violation of any provision of this code, as the conditions existed before the applicant purchased the property. I have a second.
A second.
Poll the board, please.
Chair Spencer?
In favor?
Vice Chair Brady?
In favor?
Board Member Jenna?
Favor?
Board Member Provo?
In favor.
Okay, the vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
Congratulations. I don't see any unscheduled appearances, so I will close this meeting with the Board of Adjustment. Thank you.